I'm waiting for a sucker punch. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, or host of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, this has been, to say the least, a chaotic week in the United States. And next week, we are promised, as of Monday, that the Democratic Party, that now barely controls the House of Representatives, will bring articles of impeachment. The second time it's done it during the Trump administration. And
in 12 months.
Exactly, the second time in 12 months. The fourth time in less than 50 years that the House of Representatives has embarked on an impeachment process. Remember the case of Richard Nixon, it didn't actually get to the formal impeachment. There were just impeachment hearings. The House of Judiciary Committee recommended impeachment, but it didn't actually get to an impeachment in the House of Representatives. But nonetheless, 4 attempts in the last 50 years, and there was only 1 attempt in the first 200 years of the Republic. So now, clearly, impeachment has become part of the American political process. So this does raise interesting questions about the workability of the democratic system. The democratic system is based on 2 essential concepts, which is the accountability of government to somebody, namely the voters, and the succession of power, peaceful succession of power, and the respect toward your opponents. These seem to be now in short supply in the United States. There appears to be no respect for one's opponents. An election victory is taken to be a carte blanche to smash your opponents and ram their faces into the dirt, which is very odd when the country is split pretty much 50-50. And there seems to be very little in the way of accountability either, because we have one crisis, horrific national crises that have taken place over the past couple of decades, in which very few people have paid any kind of a price for having got one after another issue wrong. But we're talking about the invasion of Iraq, the permanent military presence in Afghanistan, endless, pointless, ridiculous wars and loss of American life. And then not to mention, when it comes to the economy, the appalling crisis of capitalism, if you want to call it, that took 2008, when basically the financial elite brought the country to its knees, because the politicians who were supposed to be regulating how the financial system worked didn't bother to do any regulating, and a lot of people suffered. But none of the leaders have suffered. Supposedly, you have the system whereby the people who create these messes are forced to pay a price, but apparently not. It's the public that pays the price. So, with a democracy, Peter.
Well, yeah, I mean, the question is democracy, the idea of democracy and the practice of democracy, a public good any longer? Or is it just a cloak? Is it just something that you hide behind underneath? Because it seems to me is that democracy now has morphed the idea of it, and certainly the practice in 2020, is that it's no longer representative of voters. It is a process of distribution of power. And how does that work? Well, I mean, you can look at it from the Republican side, left and right. Let's keep it simple. From the left, well, that is a very important way, because of the change that is how the Democratic Party has changed in raising money. It's the party of the rich now. It's the rich people's party. It's no longer solely the The Republicans, what were they? They were called what kind of club was it?
Rotary Club?
What?
Rotary?
Yeah, like a Rotary Club, Republicans. And so what they do is, and that's why we see the race card played all the time. It just suddenly comes out of nowhere at times. And we saw that with Joe Biden after the incident on the Capitol. And so it is a way to redistribute power for your constituency, because we know how Democrats get really terrified when African Americans wander away and vote Republican. And so for them, it's about the distribution of power. It's not about representation. And the Republicans are not much better, because the way they look at it is they need a validation to one degree or another, and it's less or more and more, is a validation of voters of what their donors want. See, they're just the conduit in this whole process, okay? They're, in a sense, they're not truly the representatives of the people. They are representatives of the donor class, and the politicians have to convince their voters to vote for them. Everything has turned inverted here. And as far as the Democrats are concerned, going back to this distribution of power, to maintain its coalition here, they've come to the conclusion they don't need tens of millions of voters. They don't need them at all, okay? They don't speak to them. They deride them. If you disagree with them, then you're irrelevant or should be made irrelevant. And then they have their allies in big tech that can do it in a snap of a finger or a head of a click here. And so the whole idea of democracy is turning into more of a facade than representation of one man, one vote, if I can use a 19th century, early 20th century term. And that has all gone out. And there seems to be no lamenting of it, except for the people on the losing end of it and say, but that's the only, you don't give me any health care. Education is way out of reach because you need the validation and the credentials. You need money for education. That's way out of reach. Okay. There's no certainty in the economy. Gig workers aren't covered for anything, hardly anything. And so there was one thing that was left. It was the vote. Okay. Well, you could at least make an impression in the public sphere. And tens of millions of people feel that has been taken away from them as well. So, the elites have desecrated what democracy should mean. And the interesting thing is that this is a cudgel that the political elites in Washington use to beat countries around the world, that you're not democratic enough, okay? And where's your freedom of speech as it's dissipating like sand through your fingers in your own country? The hypocrisy of it doesn't seem to have been picked up by anybody in the elites, that how dastardly that they look, and pathetic. I mean, pathetic is that, they're still fighting for somebody's democracy in the Middle East, but, they won't, the Supreme Court won't stand up for voters in Texas and Pennsylvania and be heard. I mean, this is how bizarre and morbid it's become.
No, that's a very good points you're raising there. Because increasingly the meaning of democracy in Western countries is just simply something that you hold over others. It's just simply, a slogan to say, well, we are democratic, whereas you are not democratic. You, Russia, China, Iran, you are not democratic. We are. And so it becomes just simply kind of a self-validating slogan. And you're absolutely right. I mean, if you looked at, let's say back in the Cold War, you had the sort of the capitalist system, capitalist democracies, and then you had the socialist bloc. Now, one thing about the socialist bloc, they clearly were not as prosperous as the capitalist democracies, but they did guarantee you certain rights. You did have those social rights. I mean, you got a job. You didn't have to worry about being unemployed. You got all your welfare payments. You got your health care. And that was their calling card. You said, okay, well, we don't actually have political freedom. We don't have serious elections. But we actually guarantee you on the important things, and they are important things. I mean, it's not much of a democracy if people are terrified of being thrown out of their homes and unable to feed their families. So now you had the capitalist democracies who said, well, we've got prosperity and we have the vote and we have freedom. But now suddenly you don't really have much prosperity. And we're finding out you don't even have democracy and you don't have freedom. And you're not providing any guarantees for the public. So you're leaving people just in the lurch. Hey, you don't have a job, tough luck. You get kicked out of your home. So therefore, basically the system really isn't delivering on any level. And that's a very serious problem. And it cannot just go on, same as before.
See, but the comparisons are spot on, because the social contract was mitigated through what we would call a democratic system, okay? And they validate each other, because we have this free market capitalist system, which has never been free, and I doubt very capitalistic. And we have the vote, but both have evolved in different directions that are almost completely divorced from each other. See, the problem is the social contract. Now, it's always been with the mask of democracy, but if you take the mask of democracy off, then what do you have? You have the worst of all possible worlds, and I would say that's what we have right now, because you have. I mean, this is on crosstalk. My calling card for the European Union is the European Union promised prosperity, and they promised security. Well, they're not delivering on either anymore. Okay, what they were at least smart not to say democracy per se, because we know every time there's a referendum and a member state votes the wrong way, they just keep having election after election and after election until they get the result they want. That's the European way here. But the interesting thing is that one of the mistakes, particularly the United States, has made, I would say, and maybe the Anglo-Saxon world, maybe we could discuss about other areas here. But see, they've turned democracy into a secular religion. See, for most of the world, for the vast majority of the world, democracy is a procedure. Okay, it's not worshipped. Okay, it is not a totem that they kneel in front of. See, this is what they've done in the West. And as long as it works, I guess it works, okay? But when it starts failing, then your secular religion is being seen for what it is, fake, okay? And in the service for other people in the congregation, and you ain't in it.
Right. Well, I think that's exactly right. I mean, let's look at the United Kingdom, where there is deep unhappiness about the lockdowns and all the economic devastation that the lockdowns have caused. All the businesses that are closed, and the constant repression and the limitations on freedom of association, freedom of movement, freedom to speak. And then they look, well, who's articulating this anger that the public is feeling? Well, nobody, because the Labour Party is even more extreme on the lockdown theme than is Boris Johnson's Conservative government. And you have much the same situation in the United States. Remember, 2016 was supposed to be a fight between Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush. That was it. Everything was already preordained. And so, again, the public would have this illusion of a choice in which the two main candidates were pretty much in agreement on everything. Donald Trump came along and spoiled the party. And of course, the elites have not forgiven him ever since. Hence the constant impeachments and accusations of traitor and so on. But that's what you have. And so when you get a system where people, as you said, it's a fake, they got a fake choice between candidates, then how do people's grievances get addressed? Well, they don't. Which means, and what happens when they don't get addressed? Well, you then have to repress them. You have to find new ways of crushing dissent. And now we have all sorts of ways. We have the big tech monopolies. I mean, they're all now acting in concert, so that's very nice. Then you've got these extraordinary restrictions on that now it seems to be de rigueur in the Western world. Governments just simply sign orders, and everyone has to obey. Otherwise, the police come breaking into your place. So that's all you can do now. Democracy is seen to be a sham. Well, what do you do then? You tighten the screws ever harder.
See, this is what makes 2016 an amazing, almost like year zero, ground zero for everything that's going on in some ways, is that how dare the people of the UK vote for Brexit? They weren't supposed to do that. Okay. I mean, it was kind of Cameron, he said, well, if I'm at my party and I'm reelected, we'll have, why not? We'll have a referendum. That fool, when he was brought back into power, said we're going to have he wasn't obligated to. He just said, well, we could have a referendum. He could have said, we will in 10 years or something like that. My whole point is here, and if you look at what happened in 2016 with Trump, is that much to the dismay of the elites, is that tens of millions of people still took democracy seriously. Okay. And that's why they hate populism so much. Because for populists, they'll say, you're ruining our culture, you're taking our history away from us, you sneer at our religion, okay? You sneer at our traditions, okay? So I'm gonna use my vote, okay? That's the only thing I got. I'm gonna use my vote, and I'm gonna vote for things I want, not what you tell me to want, okay? And that's what they did. And this is what surprised so many people. I mean, in Poland, in Hungary, the UK, in the United States, and they still can't get their head around it. You're not supposed to vote that way, don't you know? I mean, and that's how everything just short circuits. When you're telling people, you have to have Pepsi or Coke, and you say, I want Sprite, okay?
Right. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So you have a problem here, because then if you remove democracy and you're not providing economic goods, then you have, well, are you able to do what the socialist bloc was able to do? Are you actually able to present the social and economic rights, give people full employment, give them free healthcare, give them free housing, and say, well, okay, we failed on the democracy front, but at least you're doing better than you were 20 years ago. And at least you don't have to worry about economic insecurity. So if you're not providing that, then what use are you? And that's where I think that you really have a serious crisis in a Western democracy, because, people are looking at it and say, well, what am I getting out of this system? And then they're going to start looking for alternatives. And you're absolutely right. Populism is what they're terrified of, whether it's populism of the left, populism of the right. And, in fact, the Wall Street Journal ran an editorial the other day calling on Trump to resign. And they're saying that this should be a lesson. They actually said it explicitly. This should be a lesson to any future populist. Don't do it. Don't come along and start telling people that they can have certain freedoms, and that they can start getting prosperous, and that those who are actually exploiting them and smashing their faces into the ground, we can do something about them. Don't ever start that. You future politicians, you follow the course set out by the as far as the journal is concerned, kind of mainstream GOP: free markets, tax cuts, deregulation, constant wars.
Yeah, but none of those things create positive public goods, and that's what we've seen for the last 50 years. Okay, and so I mean, why people are so wedded to this ideology? Maybe it gets just down to their own self-interests. Okay, probably most likely here. But if you're a big tech zillionaire in Silicon Valley, why should you expect a shop worker in Wyoming to have your same values? Why is that? They have very different realities. They have very, very different interests. And saying that this is the way you should think it's just authoritarian, and it's something that I keep harping on here at the Gaggle. It's just an enforced return to serfdom. Okay, but serfdom, at least serfdom, most people don't understand, wasn't slavery, okay, where you have absolutely no rights whatsoever. Under serfdom, there were some basic things that you were going to get, and then you could say, okay, well, I'm not going to starve, okay. And for a lot of serfs, that was a good place to be, okay, that you're not going to starve, okay. But what you can't continue to talk about the Bill of Rights and individual rights and human rights if all the social conditions are absent for that. I mean, that's the huge difference from Europe and the United States. Now, I'm not going to go to as far to say that the government should guarantee all these programs. I'm not going to go that far. What I'm always saying is that why don't you stop this radical race theory and these quota systems and all of this, and judging people on the way they look. You and I grew up in the 60s thinking that was wrong. And I think it is wrong, okay? I'm saying release people more. And I'm pro workers' rights. I'm for unions. Okay, I mean, if so much wealth is going to be generated, I do believe that you got to share the wealth a little bit more. It creates a more stable society, and it gives people choices. Okay, you're creating countries where you have fewer and fewer and fewer choices, and that's when people start lashing out because you have this ideology from the state down, and you're looking at it and say, but where's the goods for me? Okay. And I mean goods like real freedom to do what you want in life. I'm not talking about just physical goods. But having said that, I think that, I've said this before to you, I said, like for technical colleges and things like that, if you want to learn code, you want to be an electrician, you want to be a plumber, and don't sneer at those things, because if you do it well, you can make a very good living doing those things. The crafts, being able to do something, I think the state should subsidize that, okay? Now, if you want, post-Mongolian dance, pay for yourself, okay? Who cares about that nonsense, okay? Because you probably come from a wealthy background where you just want to get, your diploma from XYZ University, you're accredited, you're professional managerial, blah, 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 okay? Okay, not everyone, and I would even say at least half the country is not interested in that kind of thing, and I think the government should do that. See, I'm a conservative that believes government should have power and it should enforce my values, okay? And I will vote for those things.
Okay, but I mean, the key here is this, that there was something called social democracy that prevailed after 1945. The whole point of social democracy was that we do not want to go down the path of the Soviet Union. In other words, there was an alternative social and economic model. And there was a real fear that,
and I think if I can interject,
let me just finish.
If I can interject, because it's very important, and to avoid the political and economic chaos of the 1920s and 30s. Go ahead.
Right, that's right. So that was what was important there, was that there was that for the masses, for the great unwashed, for the deplorables, that social and economic model of the Soviet Union might turn out to be quite attractive. So therefore there was something called the social democracy. Social democracy means high level of taxation, recognition of trade unions, and a governmental policy toward full employment. All of those were gradually abandoned from the 1980s onward. And so now you're getting a point in which the people are getting fewer and fewer opportunities. Now you talk about the technical colleges, but what is the point of that if corporations ship jobs overseas? What is the let me finish.
Yeah.
I mean, ship jobs overseas. What is the point of getting degrees in computer science and mathematics if, again, big business brings in H-1B workers from Bangladesh or India or Nigeria, whom they can pay much less than workers at home? And so that was, oh yeah, we'll get a college degree. Yeah, but if as a result of the college degree, I'm not actually going to get a job.
I'm agreeing with you.
I mean, then again,
obviously
are being closed off. Other than, of course, the people who, again, we get to the elites who manage to get to the few, not that many, the few really high class colleges that give you all the elite connections and then waltz you into the elite jobs. Everybody wants to go to Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Chicago, nowhere else.
Now, I'm not, obviously, I'm not disagreeing with you. I believe that there should be an industrial policy for the United States, okay? And even help subsidize it if necessary, but not always, okay? I mean, I think that, there should be an industrial policy that you have to create well-paying job and no more importing of this type of labor that takes away from people that are born and educated in the United States. I'm absolutely in agreement with you on this here. But this is you and I thinking big, okay? Because people on the right never think big anymore. They always look at these little things. Oh, we just get this tax law tweaked and, no, I'm looking at the big picture, okay? And I think there should be an industrial policy for the United States where you have to rebuild industry. That's going to be like a 5 to 10 year process. It's going to be long, it's going to be hard, and it's going to be expensive, okay? But you have to do it for the people that live in your country. Citizenship should mean something. It's that the whole idea of citizenship is just drifting away. And of course, I agree with you. I'm not for an amnesty, and I'm for a big wall with doors. Okay, and get in line. Okay, and if you qualify, maybe yes, maybe no. There's no guarantee of that. See, I get criticized all the time for my attitude on immigration. And said, what about your ancestors, Peter? How cruel of you. I say, well, when my ancestors went to America, they needed brawn. They didn't need brains. Okay, they wanted people to, build railroads and work in the coal mines and all those kind of things. Okay, the economy has changed dramatically since then. Okay, it's a high-tech economy. Okay, service economy.
But the important thing is that when you have already high levels of unemployment, there can be no justification whatsoever for bringing in
I agree.
Workers from abroad. And the notion that American universities are not producing people of high quality. Come on, American universities are the best in the world. You just don't want to pay them what they deserve to be paid, so you go get cheaper labor. It's an absolutely outrageous.
Government should get out of.
It goes back to, we're talking about the political elite in Washington, because they are in the pay of the corporations who are always peddling the cheap labor line. I mean, and particularly high tech, because the high tech really does work on bringing. Let's bring in people.
And they want all the tax cuts. I mean, these people are greedy. Yeah, these are really greedy bastards. Okay, really greedy.
Cheap labor, and what is more, not just greedy bastards, but the fact that they've got so wealthy is all due to government. So that they got everything from government.
The government chose a winner.
How about something in return? Well, they gave the finger.
No, I mean, for me, is that, all government subsidies of higher education, with some exceptions, and I don't want to go into it right now, should be just cut completely cut. All right. And moving forward, if a student takes a loan out from a university is a cosigner. You co-sign it. If you believe in your education so much, okay, that, if you do postmodern Mongolian dance and you believe that person's going to make a normal wage earning life ahead, you co-sign it, okay? And if they default, you default, okay? You have to take with, see, for the higher education, they take no risks, okay? And they get government subsidies, they take no risk, and they screw their enrollment. I mean, that's got to stop. It's got to stop absolutely.
Right.
And then going full circle again, then people will believe that they have a stake in their own life, in their own communities, in the society that we're told we all belong to. I mean, then let democracy mean something again. And Samuel Huntington, well, he's passed away, obviously, but he wouldn't be. People like him shouldn't say we have excess democracy. We have excess democracy. It means democracy means nothing.
No, that's exactly right. And I think that what we're going to get during the next 2 weeks as this impeachment process gets underway is something that is being run by elites, by lobbyists, by pressure groups, and with a view to crushing once and for all any possibility of a populist movement, because this is going to be a lesson when if they do manage to convict Trump, but even if they they get a second impeachment, which is any populist who's going to go down the path of Trump will get the same treatment, and that is the whole point of this. And so what kind of there's plenty of government business surely to be done. No, we're not going to spend our time on impeachment. And why? Because we don't want any serious democracy in this country.
Where does populism come from? It comes from failed government and failed government policies and a failed ideology. It's no coincidence it comes. It's no coincidence it's occurring in different parts of the world, and all for the very same reason. Okay, if it's not working, then reassess it. Don't just double down and get your big tech friends to smother people. Okay, you see, populism is a result of failures from those in power. It's as simple as that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Peter. We will, of course, be maintaining our laser-like focus on events around the world, particularly on how the people's representatives are doing the people's business. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.